Hey guys, Captain Henson here, and today I'll be talking about Godzilla, King of the Monsters, 2019, because, yeah, gotta have multiple Godzilla films called that. Funny enough, those are the ones made in or released primarily for American audiences. So, the early days of getting news for this film were certainly exciting, not really knowing much, and this was pre-Kong Skull Island, let me tell you. And I can't remember when exactly we learned when the other Toho monsters were going to be in it, but let me tell you, when they were, ooh, so excited. And of course, this was long before we got any official look, or we got any official designs. So, the most we had was fan art. Now, like that piece of Rodan, and I'm sure everyone will know the one I'm talking about. The one that was always used when people were talking about Rodan for this movie. And I remember when the design was leaked, it was a 3D printed model. That was our first look, though we didn't know if that was official at the time. And then, of course, the SH Monster Arts figures, I think were... No, those might have come later, but those are definitely our first good look at the designs. And man, those trailers, they didn't hit me the same way 2014 did, but in terms of building up my excitement, oh yeah. Because what this film was gonna do, for me personally, was continue what started with 2014. 2014 allowed me to see not only a new Godzilla film in over a decade, allow me to see a Godzilla film in theaters, but also let me see Godzilla on the big screen. For the first time, obviously. And then, of course, Kong Skull Island allowed me to see Kong on the big screen. Well, getting a new King Kong film for one, and then, getting to see Kong on the big screen. And then what this film did is that it allowed me the chance to see Mothra, Rodan, and Ghidorah on the big screen. Plus, big budget blockbuster. So yeah, they look really good in this. Both in terms of design and, well, just the CGI itself. So, King of the Monsters. I won't be doing a plot summary, because I'm sure people who are watching this video have already seen it, and plus, it's not a complicated plot, but there are a lot of characters in there, so yeah, I'll just get into my thoughts on the movie for this one. Overall, I really liked it. Do I think it's better than 2014? That's hard to say. Even when this film came out, it would have been hard to say, because these films are incredibly different, both in terms of their stories and tone. While 2014 wanted to be more grounded, atmospheric, and darker, very much akin to 54, Return of Godzilla, even Biollante. But King of the Monsters very much leaned towards the more later Showa era. Well, I shouldn't even really say later. Yeah, okay, so the word I was looking for was spectacle. This really plays up the spectacle aspect of the giant monster genre. Now, the story itself does stay relatively serious. Yes, akin to. I'm just gonna make the comparison of King Kong versus Godzilla because that's just the film that comes to mind. Of the story, the story knows what it is. In that it knows what story it wants to tell. And the story itself is relatively. Okay, what I'm essentially getting at is there are goofy moments here, mostly in regards to the humans. This film really plays up the comedic moments. Now, depending on the person, these could be either hits, misses, or a bit of both. One's enjoyment from this film is definitely going to depend on how well you can either like or at least tolerate the human characters, because this is very much an ensemble cast. Now, I've heard complaints levied at that, but I don't have too much of an issue. We do have a core group of characters, that being Mark, Madison, and Emma. But we also have the other members of Monarch, Sarazawa, Graham. We also have Jonah Allen's group. So there are a lot of moving pieces here. But it's not hard to follow, and quite frankly, I really enjoy. I like the characters, and that's pretty much it. I didn't find any of them annoying, but it doesn't surprise me that there are people who did find at least a few of them annoying. And in terms of the kaiju stuff, I really love it here. This film, more so than 2014, really plays up the personalities, or they put the personalities of the monsters more on display. Which, as I've said before, I'm all for. It's one of the things that I love about the franchise, especially in regards to the Showa era. So here, they're on display. And going from there, this is probably my favorite iteration of Ghidorah. In that, we actually, in Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, we're told that he is essentially the Galactus of the Toho-verse, as I might as well call it. But we don't really get a good we don't really get a good look at that. Because from what we can tell, he's not that much more dangerous than, say, Godzilla. Now, of course, if Godzilla wasn't destroyed by the oxygen destroyer in the first film, or buried under ice, or the second Godzilla being buried under ice in the second movie, or being defeated by Kong in the third movie, I'm sure if Godzilla didn't have another threat, or didn't have something to oppose him, he would have wiped out the Earth. Probably. But, like I said, I don't think we ever got a good look at this destroyer of worlds. And then it doesn't help that in later appearances, he's controlled by an alien race in every other appearance he has. And even going into the Heisei Millennium series, he's controlled. And in terms of the anime trilogy, that was probably the close. Well, okay, Planet Eater came after, but that came close to it. Cool to have Ghidorah be this Lovecraftian monster, but again, in terms of how he was defeated, no. So here, though, we see just how much damage he can cause, being able to create this massive storm around him as he flies. Him being able to take control of him becoming the alpha of the other Titans just like that. Being able to regenerate his limbs, his head, and being able to drain other Titans' energy a la Kaiser Ghidorah. Well, yeah, really cool stuff. Rodan, okay, he's just a lackey for Ghidorah through most of the movie, but he's still cool. Had a nice fight scene with him and Mothra. Mothra herself, I wish we saw more of. But what we did get was cool. And yeah, I mean, honestly, I really like this movie. If you were more of a fan of the more grounded tone of 2014, then I don't know how much you'll enjoy it, but as someone who enjoys both tones when it comes to a Godzilla movie, I can enjoy both. The human characters, again, it'll change depending on who you ask. Personally, I'm invested in the plot and what these characters are getting up to, so I don't think it's much, so I don't have a problem with them. And the kaiju, again, awesome. Now, in terms of the fights themselves, in terms of the visibility of them, honestly, I don't think the fights are that hard to see in this one. 2014, well, the DVD and Blu-ray releases anyways. It's harder to see, but not impossible. It's not ideal, but it's not the worst. Thanks for the 4K release, that problem's been resolved. But in terms of King of the Monsters, I don't know what the complaint is. I can see perfectly fine. I don't know. So, yeah. That's King of the Monsters. My thoughts are a bit more jumbled than the previous two films, but this film is a lot more packed when it comes to plot. So, with that, the novelization. Well, this was fantastic. Honestly, it's like, this is what I was waiting for. Because as I've been reading through the novelizations and prequel comics, I always had the worry in the back of my head that this is going to go the way of other multimedia franchises where, yeah, we get these really interesting, supplemental material, but the studio itself doesn't care about any of it. So they'll just, retcon it like it means nothing. And before getting here, we had Godzilla Awakening, which was mostly standalone, didn't really set up 2014 all that much in terms of its central plot, but it did have some nice world building and, getting to see a monster besides the Mutos. Skull Island: The Birth of Kong, did act as a good sequel to Skull Island, giving us more of what Houston Brooks was up to, finding out that him and Son got together, had a son, seeing more of the creatures of Skull Island and also more of the island itself. That was really good in that regard. And then we got Godzilla Aftershocks, which did a lot to set up King of the Monsters. You know, in terms of Emma building the orca, Jonah Allen, how Godzilla got his new dorsal plates. And in there, we had Brooks, who referenced the events. We had Houston Brooks, who referenced the events of Skull Island, the birth of Kong. And now we have the novelization. Now, I had heard that this novelization did reference back to, you know, the other prequel comics, and yeah, they did. Now, right off the bat, this makes a lot of references and callbacks to Godzilla Aftershock, really building up the importance of that being a prequel comic to King of the Monsters. We have characters reference the battle with the Jinshin Mushi. I can't remember if they call it the Muto Prime, but they do refer to it as another Muto and the Jinshin Mushi. Reference to how the attacks were on a smaller scale than the Mutos of 2014. That being what led to Emma really finishing the Orca prototype. That being what those events being how Jonah Allen and Emma met. Mark even references, you know, the fight with the Jinshin Mushi is how Godzilla got his new plates. And honestly, that was great. It's fantastic to have a multimedia franchise actually utilize itself as a multimedia franchise. God. And then not only that, we also get a reference to Randa from Skull Island. That was neat. And I was so waiting for this. We got references to Godzilla Awakening. Finally. Serizawa references, or it's referenced that Serizawa's father was was there in the early days of Monarch. And then, I'm fairly certain it's after Graham gets killed by Ghidorah, when Serizawa's looking at his watch, he thinks back to his father, and basically gives us a summary of what happened in Awakening. As far as I could tell, we didn't get any direct reference to Skull Island, the birth of Kong, but given the fact that it is referenced in Godzilla Awakening, which is referenced here, we have all of the supplemental material of the MonsterVerse connected finally. So now it actually feels like a more, you know, like I said, a connected universe. And then moving on from there, this also, again, acts as an extended cut. Though, interestingly enough, this is the first novelization to have the MonsterVerse okay, but yeah, you can see MonsterVerse logo. So it does feel like that they were treating this novel more so like the Star Wars EU and New Canon novelizations, in that what we get in these novels are meant to be, you know, canonical. Now novelizations can be a bit iffy when it comes to this, but generally speaking, I'd say whatever information that's in these novelizations that aren't in, the primary or the thing it's a novelization of is canon, and of course, whatever contradicts the movie takes precedence. And in here, as far as I could tell, this was essentially just an extended cut. I didn't really notice any changes of dialogue. This isn't like the Skull Island novelization, where it was clearly based on an earlier draft of the script, so we did have different things happening. Or at least some events are altered a bit. But in here, though, I couldn't tell. Along with getting more references to the greater Monsterverse, like I said, it also acts as an extended cut. Like, we have this whole other subplot involving the Monarch outpost at Sudan that houses the Mokela Membe. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that right. Of course, it doesn't... Like I said, it's just a subplot. It doesn't add much to the main plot, but it's nice to have. And along with that, we get to see how people react to each of the titans that get released after Ghidorah does his call. Mostly they involve the Monarch employees reacting to it, but the one in Germany, we get to see a couple of civilians react. And in the movie, that was just shown as a montage of them, at least a few of them waking up, and then others we just see on video screens. But here, again, we actually get to see them not only wake up, but other people react to it, really building up the apocalyptic tone and atmosphere which was there in the film itself, but I think this just builds it up. It's like, honestly, if I had to compare this to another novelization, my first go-to would be the Revenge of the Sith novelization, which not only acted as an extended cut to the movie, but also had a ton of references to the greater expanded universe, thus making it the definitive version of the definitive telling of that story. And here it's the same way. Not only do we get more from the plot, get to see the other Titans more, but we also get the connections to the larger Monsterverse, the other stories told in other mediums that currently exist. Shit like this is what makes me wish the Omni viewer... I don't know if he reads the novelizations. I think he does. But, this novelization right here proves, at least, there are those at Legendary who do care about the larger Monsterverse. Because there is no, or maybe this was just Greg Keyes. I do know Michael Dougherty and Zach Shields apparently talked with him, or at least that's what he says here. So I can guess that everything involving the other Titans came from them. And of course, Greg Keyes just put it in the novelization. And maybe he did put those references to the other Godzilla no prequel comics there because he wanted to. Or maybe it did come from Legendary. I don't know, but the point is, at least for now, I'm going to have faith that this is a good sign. That the MonsterVerse is a multimedia franchise that actually cares about utilizing its supplemental material. And until I'm proven wrong, that's my stance. So, if you haven't, read this novelization. Not only does it add more to the plot of the film, but again, connects to the larger universe, and quite frankly, it's the best version of this story. So what did you all think of King of the Monsters? Did you like it as much as 2014? More so? Hated it? And did you think the novelization is fantastic? Let me know in the comments section below. And as at the time of this recording, I will be seeing Godzilla vs. Kong in theaters in just a few hours. I wish the prequel comics came out before then so I could, read them, but what can you do? Till next time, this is Captain Ensign, signing off.